Well, I'm here today really to tell the story of Plessy. We might have been a bit of a black box to everyone who's in the room here for recent years. Because of our agreement with a large tech company, I can't really go into depth about the technology, the equipment, etc. That we use in the organisation. But I'll give you an overview of our journey over recent years, where we are on the technology, the application, and where we're going. And a view of maybe what's next for our organisation and how we could potentially collaborate in this market space going forward. Right, I should press this button, I guess. Right, so Plessy has a long-standing history in the semiconductor design and manufacturing industry. The Plessy facility that we're based today was built in 85, and 10 years later, in 95, we built an advanced CMOS line, 0.35 micron technology at 8-inch, and it was the first Smith podded line in Europe at the time, which is fairly cutting edge for its time. The foundry offered standard CMOS mixed signal as well as CMOS imaging capabilities over the years to numerous tier 1 automotive and medical customers. Like many companies in the UK, over its history, Plessy was acquired by a number of mostly historical, like GEC, tech firms over that period. But in 2009, that's where the company started changing. There was a management buyout in that 2009, led by Michael Legoff, who was a charismatic business leader from Canada, and the ex-CEO of Dynex, for those who know who Dynex is. Okay, so after that management buyout, we were obviously pushing the CMOS foundry, but from that period, the 2009 to 2013, it became quite evident that the Far East competition was eroding the business, and it was making it really more and more difficult to survive in that industry. So that was the lead up to our first pivot. So to try to go up the food chain from the semiconductor devices into products. So our CTO, now CEO, Keith Strickland, started trying to bring products into the organization. First of which was the EPIC sensor. Sorry, I'm not going wrong with this button. Here we go. Back a bit. First of which was the EPIC sensor, which is effectively a very sensitive, high impedance amplifier that we brought in. Plessy converted it. We acquired that business from the University of Sussex. Plessy converted it into a fully integrated IC. It was so sensitive, actually, that you could detect changes in an electric field in the room next to you. Its main application, though, was as an ECG measurement, so by touch. So no need for the sticky pads and wires going into an external system. We had some success with the technology, but then we eventually sold it to a US company. But you can get that technology. It's in the Apple Watch, and other fitness watches are available. The next technology that we acquired into the business was a spin-off from Cambridge University. This is GaN on silicon technology, and this was actually the change that really made the journey that we've been on in recent years. So the technology that Cambridge had managed to demonstrate was to grow GaN on 6-inch silicon wafers for the purposes of blue LEDs. This is when the world was actually using 2-inch or 4-inch GaN on sapphire wafers. So this was really a pure play cost-based opportunity for the organisation, and it was easy to gain investor interest in that because of that view and that potential market. However, we completely underestimated the actual complexity of establishing a micro LED line. So instead of that 12-month development period that we anticipated, it took 2 to 3 years to actually get the product into a commercially viable product in terms of performance, yield, and manufacturability. So we'd obviously got to market, but at that time, the market had already moved on. So our competitors, so Plessey was on 6-inch GaN on silicon, and our competitors had moved into 4-inch GaN on sapphire, but they were at 50 to 100 reactors, while Plessey only had 2 reactors. So we didn't have the scale to be able to compete. We did have some successes in the high power LED market, but again, due to the scale of our competitors and the portfolio that they had, it made it really difficult for us to really gain traction. So that led us on to, before I talk about that, so luckily during that time, Keith and a few other engineers got into a government-funded project to develop small LEDs for a direct printhead application. So with this project, we developed the capability to be able to do LEDs really, really small, sub 50 microns. And at this point, we saw the possibility of going into this technology being used for new displays. And therefore, we created some demonstrators around that. The benefit of this technology, though, is that we were on a silicon substrate, and though that we were only on 6-inch at the time, you could see how you could scale to 8-inch as well as 12-inch in future. And also because of the silicon, it was easier to integrate to a silicon IC. That meant that it would be easier for control and for readouts via hybrid bonding, which the company has really become a world leader at this stage. So that entered our next pivot, really, to go into from high-power LEDs to the micro-LED market space. However, unlike LEDs, the micro-LED market was a really nascent market. So that's in time when our investors and the CEO now, Keith had moved from CTO to CEO at that time, we're really going on the road, checking with all the large tech firms about the viability of the technology, and if this display market was really going to get going. But that's exactly what happened. So day before Boris closed the country down for COVID, we got a deal with Meta, obviously a huge tech firm and a huge success for the organization. So with Meta, we have a multi-year agreement, which effectively means for a company like Plessey, we became captured. So although we are very much a separate company, and we can absolutely work with other customers, the sheer scale of the opportunity with Meta, the change in our facility that we had to do to be able to support their business on an ongoing roadmap, and the technology development that we had to do just meant that we would have very difficult to have any bandwidth to be able to do any work outside of that agreement. So from an external perspective, we've very much become a black box. So inside that black box, you'd be forgiven to think it was a lot of champagne, some high fives and chillaxing after that agreement. And obviously it's a huge thing for a UK tech a company to have such a deal with such a tech giant. However, the enormity of the challenge was soon upon us. So we had to go from what, quite frankly, was a small tired R&D line to a world-class, state-of-the-art compound semiconductor development line. We needed to do it as soon as possible, and thanks to Boris, we now needed to do it under the conditions of COVID, there was absolutely no concession for the fact that COVID had just hit us and the country was in lockdown. So before the Meta deal, we were obviously trying to do the best that we could with the equipment set that we had. But following the agreement, we had to try to install that state-of-the-art equipment line for the purposes to support their development and for low-volume manufacture for their prototyping. So from a planning perspective, we had to really strengthen the team to be able to adopt the latest philosophies and software, to be able to continually accelerate the timeframes at which we were doing things and the critical paths of those plans. From a people perspective, we had to bring in people really quickly, recruit really quickly to support the new equipment set that we were bringing into the facility and to bolster our development capability. So from a facilities perspective, well, where to begin, really? Tom in the audience here was living this at the time, and we have to really significantly update the whole organisation, from the facilities, the clean rooms, creating new clean rooms, bringing in new development equipment into the organisation, working with global vendors to be able to bring those tools in, install them, qualify those tools. And I said that was during COVID and lockdown, which was really difficult to get anyone into the country, never mind the actual the company. As well as the actual facility, we had to obviously upgrade the offices and our collaborative spaces to be able to work with Meta. This is also to reinvigorate staff and attract new talent into the organisation, given that opportunity. So from a collaboration perspective and a partnership with Meta, I've never seen a partnership model like this before. It's very intense. Meta have their own branded office within our facility, complete with their own security people. They have their managers, program managers and engineers within the facility, and they worked hand in hand with Meta, shoulder to shoulder, trying to do the development, bringing up the development plans and executing on those development plans. It was really strained relationship initially, just because you can imagine from the clash of cultures, you had a manufacturing culture and also a sort of tech software culture. And that was a really tough challenge for the first couple of years until we were able to, bring up our new business processes to ensure that we were successful there. So from a technology perspective, never mind the partnership, obviously we were fighting the fundamentals of material physics here. So we're trying to maintain really high performance in micro LEDs while shrinking the pixel sizes to ever smaller sizes, where the surface losses become dominant. So from the pixel architectures that we'd already designed, we'd had to design new pixel architectures to be able to mitigate that, and obviously work with differing compound semiconductor material. So not just GaN on silicon, but GaN on sapphire and Allen gap on gas. From a quality and business process perspective, you can imagine, obviously, given the change in the organisation, everything had to be reshaped and updated for our new way of working, collaborating, and to reflect our new infrastructure that we had, as well as the equipment sets that we had. But ultimately, we were doing this basically to ensure that we developed a world-class low-volume manufacture, development and low-volume manufacture facility, able to do agile development, to support fast learning cycles so that we could do fast technology development. We needed to improve our operations to become that world-class facility with operating KPIs that the organisation or any organisation in the world would be proud of. And we were doing this, obviously, to be able to exceed our customers' expectations. Okay, so that's that's the background to this. Some of the next images here are just trying to demonstrate the scale of change at the organisation. So there'll be some repetition. But this is our now new coffee area and breakout for collaboration. So gone are the 80 styles pig pen type offices. Think of Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, where he's going around the building with those grey partitions. They've now all gone. It's all very collaborative space and open plan office at the facility now. We obviously done a lot of this to boost and reinvigorate, boost motivation, reinvigorate, attract new talent and retain the talent that we had at the organisation, as well as improving people's health and well-being. From a people's perspective, we had to more than double the number of people in the organisation within the first 12 to 24 months. So we've gone from about 140 to just short of 300 people in that time. So there was a huge amount of burden in terms of training and development as well for those people that were coming into the organisation, as well as career and succession planning. So from a facilities perspective, that was the biggest project really within the first 12 to 18 months. We had to transform the facility, create those new clean room spaces, upgrade the spaces that we had, as well as get that new equipment set in, all done, as I say, under COVID conditions. So we increased our overall clean room space by about 20%, and increased our clean room utilisation from about 30% to way over 80%. The images here show the install of a complete 8-inch development line and its supporting infrastructure. And we also added a capability in wafer sizing and dicing, as well as CMP, which is extremely important for the technology, hybrid bonding technology. Okay, so from a technology perspective, the micro LEDs are there to target the AR market. So for the AR market, the technology has to be really high resolution to allow high definition and wide field of view for the application. They also need to be highly efficient for that high brightness, because at the end of the day, this is going to be a wearable product. It's going to be a product that you need to be able to wear outside. Oh, right, I'm running right out behind time. It's a product that you need to wear outside, and it needs to overcome the daylight conditions. Also need to overcome the really inefficient optical secondary optics of the glasses, because obviously Meta want these glasses to be really cool that everyone wants to adopt, but that means really inefficient optics to be able to get that display on the glasses. So it needs to be really high performance to be able to allow for the losses there. Again, high efficiency because you want the product to last a long time, so it needs to be really efficient from a power perspective, as well as heat. You don't want, this is a wearable product, you don't want it to be too hot and uncomfortable for the user. So that puts a really high burden on the technology in terms of, for all three colours, all the performance for all three colours need to be up there. Okay, I'll try to speed up now for Charles's benefit and all your benefits. So we have to go from this small R&D to a big world-leading R&D facility, capable of operating and developing 24/7 to produce those high learning cycles, to be able to do fast-paced development. Turning Plessey into a world-class facility where we could be proud of the KPIs and our development speed. So while I can't talk about the investment into the organisation and how much that was, I can really say that it ran into hundreds of millions of pounds, which is likely to be the largest investment in the semi industry in the UK over recent years. Sorry, Charles, I do have a couple more slides just for interest. All right, okay. So what's driving all this? So here is a market landscape for displays. Differentiation there, so low differentiation on the left-hand side, high differentiation at the top on the right-hand side. So micro-LEDs can actually be used for all these market spaces. But for the left-hand side, I think because of the cost and high performance of OLED, the current incumbent technology, I think probably the technology is going to be maybe for the higher-end products. I was in Display Week in San Jose the other week, where I was looking at a micro-LED TV, and it was a very reasonable price of over £100,000 for that TV. I didn't quite have enough money for it this year, so maybe next year, right? Yeah, so it might be viable for the high-end products in that range. But for the products on the right-hand side, so the heads-up display in automotive and AR glasses, micro-LED promises to be the enabling technology for this application. And therefore, there's a tech pull from the market or organizations who want to address that market. So from an AR perspective, although heavily promoted by tech giants over recent time, indeed Meta changing their name from Facebook to Meta in 2021, the AR market doesn't actually exist. It's still a potential market. So why is Meta doing this? Well, they believe that mixed signal and AR is going to be the next computing platform of our age. They have an annual revenue that's way above 100 billion. That mostly comes from advertising. So it makes sense that Meta want to ensure they're not locked out of that new platform. And also gives them the opportunity to grow against their competitive tech giants. So you can see now why before 2020 that Plessey really needed, given the uncertainty of the market and given the technical challenges, Plessey really needed that investment, a strategic investment to be able to address that market space. Last slide, promise. So through our strategic partnership with Meta, Plessey has been able to establish a world-class R&D compound semiconductor facility in photonics. Where are we going next? Well, we'll be continuing to be heavily engaged with Meta from an R&D perspective to low-volume manufacture, and presumably taking that to a high-volume manufacture outside of the UK, probably. And we're already working on next-generation systems as well, where the process will probably repeat. However, there is a possibility, given the growth in our organisation and its facility and capability, that they will be seeking additional partnerships at some time in the future for non-competing organisations looking to address the display, power and communications in a market space. As Plessey would be a really strong partner for that, for those markets, for this technology, from a lab to fab model or a direct contract manufacturer, leveraging Plessey's capability, know-how that we've developed for a range of compound semiconductor materials. Charles will be glad to know that was the last from me, so thank you everyone for listening.